Hi, everybody. I'm Reverend Peter Panagore. I'm in the Second Congregational Church in Warren, Maine. And if you happen to live near here, you should know it has Swedenborgian leanings. And what that means is Swedenborg was a Lutheran mystic from a couple centuries ago. And these people have a tendency toward the heart of God and the light of God. Yes? Yes, they're all nodding their heads. So I'm going to read the scriptures and then preach the sermon. Welcome this morning. Hi, Mark, my brother-in-law. The scripture this morning is from the Gospel of Matthew in the 2nd chapter. And it's the traditional story this Sunday, because today is variously known as Three Kings Sunday or Epiphany. It's the official end of Christmas. After Jesus was born in Bethlehem in Judea, during the time of the King Herod, Magi came from the east to Jerusalem and asked, "Where is the one who has been born King of the Jews? We saw his star when it rose up and have come to worship him." When King Herod heard this, he was disturbed, and all of Jerusalem with him. When he had called together all the people's chief priests and teachers of the law, he asked them, "Where is the Messiah who was born?" "In Bethlehem in Judea," they replied, "for this is what the prophet has written. But you, Bethlehem, and the land of Judah, are by no means least among the rulers of Judah. For out of you will come a ruler who will shepherd my people Israel." Then Herod called the Magi secretly and found out from them the exact time the star had appeared. He sent them to Bethlehem and said, "Go and search carefully for the child. As soon as you find him, report him to me, so that I too may go and worship him." After they had heard the king, they went on their way. And the star they had seen, when it rose, went ahead of them until it stopped over the place where the child was. When they saw the star, they were overjoyed. On coming to the house, they saw the child with his mother Mary, and they bowed down and worshipped him. They opened their treasures and presented him with gifts of gold, frankincense, and myrrh. And having been warned in a dream not to go back to Herod, they returned to their country by another route. The sermon this morning is called Dreams That Speak to Us. So earlier this year, I read a book called Why We Sleep by Matthew Walker. And I'll be talking about dreams, but I want to give you some of the key points of why we sleep and why we dream. Here they are. When we lack sleep, and I should begin by saying, this guy did 20 years of study. He was an Oxford fellow. He's a super brain. Lots of data he pulled into this. When we sleep, the decision-making area of our brains, the prefrontal cortex, doesn't work well. We actually lose 30% of our capacity when we don't sleep enough. Of all of our systems, all of them begin to fail. Lack of sleep makes it harder to do the things people like normally to do. People who are deprived of sleep are more likely to choose easy tasks compared to people with a good night's rest. Sleep teaches motor skills. During rapid eye movement sleep, known as REM sleep, your brain is actually replaying the physical skills you learned that day. Sleeping 6 hours per night for 10 days causes the same decrease in performance for all you athletes, 400%, as one night with no sleep. People who don't sleep enough never realized how impaired their judgment actually is, and he compares it to being drunk. Lack of sleep affects hunger. People who sleep less are hungrier and eat more. You want to be on a diet? Get more sleep. They also choose less healthy foods. Sleep less, eat more potato chips. Now here we get to dreams. Dreams actually have a function. Dreams help us connect new information to our existing knowledge, which helps us to be more creative. Dreams also help us regulate our emotions. Studies show that dreams with emotional content make us feel less bad about embarrassment, sadness, anger, or trauma. Sleep and dreams heal the brain. When we're awake, the cerebral cortex is responsible for our higher order thinking, or our intellectual brain functions, such as reasoning, thinking, and voluntary movements, and overall behavior. Injury to this area in the brain can impair judgment, cause traumatic personality changes, and create problems with attention and focus. In sleep, this part of the brain, the prefrontal cortex, ceases to function. It shuts down, allowing the rest of the brain free rein to make connections we could not possibly make when we're awake. There's a rock star. Maybe he's from Rolling Stones, or I can't remember, Aerosmith, somebody like that. He writes his songs when he wakes up from a dream. He writes down what he thinks. Dreams make us creative, and if you take note of your dreams, you find yourself being more creative because the brain is making connections it doesn't normally make. And when we lack sleep, the cerebral cortex essentially shuts down and reason no longer filters our thoughts. And we end up with a waking dream. Ever have a waking dream from lack of sleep? Now, according to Walker, dreams are essentially insanity because there's no reason and thinking filtering them. And there are other kinds of dreams too. Anybody here ever hear of lucid dreams? Lucid dreams are the kind of dreams that you have when you're awake in your dream. When you're awake in your dream and you have some control over your dream. I had one just the other night. I was visiting somebody, and in the middle of the night I had this dream where I woke up in my dream in the same room, and I got out of my bed and I reached down and I grabbed my glasses so I could see what I was doing, only when I picked them up, they weren't mine. They were like my grandfather's lenses with a silver wrap, and I went out into the hallway because I thought, that's strange, I'm going to go see what's going on. And I'm thinking these thoughts in the dream. I'm going to go see what's going on. So I step out in the hallway and there's a gingham dress hanging on a hanger. And I'm like, what is that all about? And I look up and on the door there are words moving around on the door, and I decided that I didn't want to know what they were. I decided that in my dream, and I decided to go back to bed in my dream. That's sort of like a lucid dream where you're awake inside your dream. You have some control over it. Now, there are other kinds of dreams, and probably some of you have had that kind of dream too, and maybe you talk about it, and maybe you don't. That's the kind of dream where a deceased loved one comes to visit you. And you don't need to raise your hand on this, but you can if you want to. How many here? There are some here this morning. My mom had one recently. My mom had one of my sister Andrea, who came to my mother in a dream with her parents, and Andrea essentially apologized to my mother for causing her pain and trouble in her life. And my mother had, it was like a telepathic communication. There were no words spoken. It was a direct communication of asking forgiveness, which, you may know, is love. Giving forgiveness is a function of love. It's a form of love. And that happened in a dream. You know, sometimes when your loved one is deceased, the visitation won't come to you. It'll come to somebody else. But it's incredibly common. Or, for instance, you might have a dream, you might be the receiver of a dream of someone else's loved one. And you don't really know why that happened, but it is your responsibility, I think, to convey that information. I know that may sound kind of nutsy to some people, but it's so common that it seems true. And I think it is. So there's another kind of dream too. And that kind of dream is where maybe God talks to you in your dream. It's much more rare, I think. And I think much more common, like these kings who got a warning. I think it's much more common that they had an intuition dream, a warning dream. You ever have a warning dream? My wife had a warning dream. I woke up one morning and I said, I'm not going to go play softball today. And she said, good, because I had a dream about it last night. And about 2 hours later, I said, I'm going to go play softball today. And she said, I don't think you should. And what happened? I slid into second base. The base was spiked. My foot went under the base. I will spare you the broken details. She was a little upset at me because if I had listened to her dream, I probably wouldn't have gone. Now, how did she know that? I have no idea. But there's yet another kind of warning dream where you pick up information. It seems to be wired into the brain. You kind of pick up information. Maybe these kings heard the tone of Herod's voice and it filed in the back of their head. Or they saw a micro expression on his face and they filed that in the back of the head. And they didn't even know that they did that. And when the prefrontal cortex shuts down, that information wires itself together and the dream is produced. Don't go back and tell Herod. We get warning dreams like that too because subconsciously we pick up information that feeds through our brain independently of our thinking and gives us communication. And the wonderment of that is that it's built into our brains. It's not miraculous. The miracle is that that's the way we're wired. The miracle here is that the brain itself, with sleep and dreaming, makes us more intelligent, more creative, more understanding. We lose weight, we're healthier, and we understand ourselves better. So when I used to think that the three kings, or however many there were, I used to think that it was an angel that came to them in a dream. I'm not so sure anymore. I'm thinking that the miracle itself is the way the brain is made in that case. Is the way that I use the word designed in quotes, because I understand evolution enough to know that there's a lot of chance in that. But it seems that we have this kind of brain that allows us to understand ourselves better when we dream and understand each other better when we dream. I wonder, when you go to sleep tonight, will you dream? And if you dream, what will you learn from your dream about yourself and the place that you live? As for me, I try to pay attention to my dreams as much as I can. Some of them are crazy, but some of them tell me something about myself or my life. And sometimes even, we hear the voice of God in our dreams. I know a woman, she's an Episcopal priest. God came to her in a dream and called her to ministry. She rose up through the church, the Episcopal Church, and became the canon of the church in Ohio where the bishop had his or her seat. And it all came about as a dream. The voice of God spoke to her. Those three kings listened to their dreams. I think it's good advice for us as well to pay attention to our dreams. It's a short sermon today, and I thank you for joining me, and I hope that it was helpful at all. This is not the normal sermon that I've preached here. Usually I'm kind of off my textbook here, but today I decided to write one because I wanted to make sure I hit the high points and the key points that I thought were important. So thank you all, peace to you all, and I will see you all later. Bye.